Okay, good evening. Thanks for joining us. We'll do some proper introductions. I know I've got one or two new faces tonight, so we'll do some proper introductions when we sit down for dinner. So for those that have been with us through the whole course, this is the last in a series of 9 dinners where we've been chatting through all the key issues facing high growth small business owners. And I'm absolutely delighted tonight to welcome Phil Gibbs, who's come all the way from Oxfordshire.
Thank you very much.
Of Partnership Profits, who is an expert in working with small business owners to help them drive affiliate income and affiliate partnerships in their business. Yeah, is that fair?
Yeah, referrals is what you guys may be more familiar as the term, yeah.
But referrals that generate fundamentally an extra revenue stream.
Absolutely.
Not referrals that we might know. So this is about generating referrals that bring an extra income stream and a significant income stream into our business. And it's certainly passive income is something that's facing all small business owners right now. How can you maximise those opportunities out there? So absolutely delighted that Phil, who is certainly the people in my network claim to be one of the experts in the UK. If not,
I don't think there's anybody else, that's the reason.
Well, there you go. It's certainly the Besseries. But either way, we're delighted to have you here, so welcome.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, delighted to come up and meet you all. That's great.
So, Phil, just for the benefit of everybody here, just tell us a little bit about how you got into this. Tell us your backstory and how you got into being an expert in this space.
Right, so yeah, sure. So super quick. As a kid, I loved cars and I started my career, I worked with Land Rover in test and development and ended up testing cars all over the world. Thought I got my dream job. Tested in the desert, taking them onto ice lakes and all that kind of stuff. Thought I was at 20 thought I got my absolute dream job. Chased the money, as we're all a bit intend to, got further and further away from the product itself, the bit that I loved, more into the politics and red tape around a big corporate world, and looked really at my bosses versus my father, my dad, who's always been had an entrepreneurial streak, if you like, and I was like, well, hang on a second, this is how dad's days work. You know, I'd grown up around that, and this is, to get that kind of money, you know, this is what these guys have to do, and actually can I even attain that level? And so I decided after 14 years with them, right from an apprentice right the way up, that I would leave, and nobody left the corporate, nobody, it was a job for life in even, you know, going back to the 90s. And I got an opportunity then. I've played golf since I was a very small boy, and I got an opportunity of 2 guys that owned a golf and country club, and they wanted somebody to go off and run it. And I'd played golf from the small, and I'd done my business studies and marketing and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, perfect opportunity. They asked if I'd like to come and help them grow it and sell it. And I thought, well, perfect opportunity. I've got all this theory. Now here's an opportunity to actually put it into practice. And that was my real baptism of fire, in that what you learn is not at all how it actually works out in real life. But I ultimately they got a 3-4 year plan. It took us 5 in the end, but we built the golf and country club business. We built it up and we sold it super successfully, which I was very, very proud of. But then that was the bit where I learned that actually the corporate world, the 37 hours a week, the 40 hours a week versus the 90 hours a week was a huge, huge change. But I absolutely loved it, and I got into what I do now. We'll cover off with one of the other questions, out of necessity of trying to find a marketing channel that was performance based as opposed to speculating money up front. You know, we a lot of pay for advertising up front, hoping that leads will come into our business and a percentage of those will come through to paying clients at the end. Because of a reason we'll come on to in a moment, we really needed to, our back was up against the wall, and we had to find a way that we could generate leads and reward that lead, but not until after the lead had become a paying client. That's how I came into the referral marketing, affiliate marketing world. And of course we were trying to build a business to sell it. So equally, as well as our backs up against the wall, it turned out to be a very good revenue generator and great for the EBITDA, anybody that's looked at that kind of aspect of valuing your company, because it was all performance based. So it was all cash flow positive from that point of view. So it was excellent for the overall valuation of the business and achieving the goals at the end of it. When I came out of that, it was just a natural thing for me to then go and progress and sort of go on and help other businesses do what I'd been able to do for this particular business. So it was cool. It's found my own little niche really off the back of a challenge. So,
and I know you're going to tell us more about that, but certainly when I first got to know you, I was thinking, well, here's a guy that was running a golf club and has sold a golf club. How the hell has he become an expert in generating this kind of business model? And that was the kind of first question. So you're obviously going to share some of that story with us, but some of what you're going to tell us about tonight is something that any sector pretty much can do.
100%.
And the thing that really fascinated me, because we did a Facebook Live recently where you shared some of your tips, but it's the only form of marketing where you don't spend money first, assuming that you may or may not get a sale further down the line. This is you only spend money when you get the sale. So it's the only no-brainer marketing system there is out there, which in an environment where marketing is so important and cash flow is the biggest issue for small business owners, it surprises me why a majority of small business owners are not on this bandwagon.
Yeah. Well, we'll touch on that as we go through. But
so tell us what has been your biggest obstacle that you've faced? How did you overcome it, and what did you learn from that?
So on the basis that we're in Chatham House rules in here, which I'm comfortable that we are because I know you well. So the challenge was about 6 months after going into the Golf and Country Club, we had our overdraft pulled. So what was a very seasonal business, and at the time it was turning over a lot of money, but it was extremely seasonal. So we would make a lot of money over the summer months and then effectively consume that money and a bit more over the winter months, because you've still got to have all the facilities on hand, but you're not generating the footfall that you would. And we had an overdraft of 180 grand, which we used about 150 of it, most over the winter. And bless them, I won't mention the bank's name, but after 10 years of really successfully trading with them, they wrote to us and said, we're withdrawing, we won't be renewing your overdraft facility in 6 months' time. It does become clear later on as we go into the banking crash side as to why they did that. But at the time, we got no foresight. We couldn't see that was going to happen. And I'd been in the role for really no time at all. This was like, wow, how do we get around this? We'd got a business that was doing a couple of million quid a year, but margins were lower. So a lot of that cash got consumed in just running the joint and paying a team of 38 people and that kind of stuff. So we rapidly needed to look for ways of how were we going to keep trading, and if we moved banks and all that kind of stuff was thrown in, and that's where they say that you don't really get resourceful until your back's up against the wall. And I learned this, one of the first real core entrepreneurial business lessons I learned was like, right, well, we need to stay afloat. How do we thin things out as quickly as possible, and how can I generate sales that don't cost me anything to generate? So we went out and I formed partnerships with just about every business out there around the local area that I thought could have any type of my target audience around it. So we did deals with car dealerships, local insurance firms, solicitors, lawyers, everybody trying to say, right, well, if you would promote us, if you would have your pamphlets or leaflets or whatever on the reception desk and whatever, if you would promote us, then to motivate you and incentivize you, for every sale that you bring in, we'll reward you. And sometimes that was a monetary reward, And in other times, that was a sort of a benefit reward, because we would give away corporate membership days or corporate days or discounts off rounds of golf and all that kind of stuff. So it was just the necessity of how were we going to basically fill the gap. And over a 9-month period, we plugged nearly 100 grand gap. And with a bit of digging in pockets fortunately from the owners, we survived that first winter, which was looking extremely doubtful. And by the time we'd really leveraged this marketing system, by the time we got round to the next winter, we'd got an overdraft back in place. But actually, it was the first year that they never dipped into it. I think we went down to about 5 grand or something like that, but we never went overdrawn. And it was that really fueled the owners' sort of desire then to leverage it and sell it, because they could see that, you know, that the history we were building up was making it much more attractive for an acquisition.
So what you're actually saying then, it's a phrase I use quite often, is that it's a phrase I'm looking for. Necessity is the mother of all invention.
Yeah.
So basically, once your back's against the wall and you have to come up with a strategy, then you do come up with a strategy.
Yeah, there's no doubt that I would have not looked so hard and got so creative and resourceful and that if we'd have just carried on having that OD in place, because we'd have just carried the normal pattern, you know, through. Whereas it was like, well, you've just had that pulled out your cash flow. How do you plug the gap? And it was, it forced us to.
But how did you know How did you know that was potentially a winning solution? The concept of just going and having strategic partnership discussions.
Yeah, I didn't know. If you like, it was just well, how can I get sales that aren't going to cost me anything? Because I've got no marketing budget. That's the thing, as well as some staff. You know, the marketing budget had to be pulled. So how can I pull the marketing budget but still generate leads and sales?
And the thing that's key to that, which knits some of the other conversations we've had over the last few months together, is that a lot of small business owners need to spend more time really nailing their avatar, because what's clear from that is you knowing exactly where your avatar hang out. If you know what kind of car they drive, you know which garage they go to, and so on and so forth. So if you know exactly what your avatar looks like, you can then go to the places they hang out and start to have these discussions. Yeah,
I go one step further than that actually, and it's knowing what your ideal customer looks like. Because we've all got customers that are easy to serve and are profitable, and we've got customers that consume time and aren't probably as profitable as we would like them to be. What I've learned over the times of actually taking this principle online and learning how you can scale it automatically digitally, that it is such a powerful technique that you really have to be clear the ideal customer you want to bring in, because it can bring an awful lot of leads into the business very quickly, and if those aren't the type of people that you truly want to serve, then actually you magnify a problem rather than creating a solution.
So there's a difference between a customer avatar and an ideal customer avatar, for obvious reasons. Yeah. So you've developed this concept, it's started to yield a result for you, it's helped you plug a gap, overcome a problem. So you've then sold the business and you've thought, here's a niche, here's an opportunity for me. So for you to go from that point to where you are today, what's been the key to your success? What rituals, what game plans, what systems have you been using to help you deliver what you've delivered?
Yeah, I think, so personally, let's answer that in two ways. I think personally, persistence is, I think that is my single biggest asset. And I very rarely accept the answer that, or if I get an answer I don't want, I just stick at it and find a way of creating or understanding why that didn't go the way I wanted it to go, and how can I either encourage that person to think differently if it's their mindset or their beliefs that's limiting their decision, or whether it's me just going after the wrong person.
Yeah.
So I think sort of never being worried that I'm going to fail, because my dad taught me that from a young age, that you should just try everything, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and happy days. You know, just learn from it and carry on. And then the persistence and the determination to say, well, yeah, you know, if I genuinely think, if I tend to trust my gut feel quite a lot. If I deep down believe that something should work for somebody, and honestly, I'm not going after money, I think it's the right solution for them, then I think it's my duty to kind of help them understand and see that. And it's that sort of determination and persistence, if you like, that's really helped me refine who really is the ideal clients and who this really works really well for and who I can help easily and quickly.
Do you think that's an issue with small business owners, that they lack that persistence when the going gets tough?
I think there is in everybody, and I count myself in it. I think it is very easy to go to the default comfortable position of I'll do what I know because that hasn't quite worked out. I think we all suffer from that. You know, I'm not saying that I'm past it by no means, but I think that having that awareness that when you're going to a default position just because it's comfortable, being aware that you've done that, and actually if this new route is the real route through the problem, then not worrying about failing and being persistent and going back on it, because I think we all do that.
So that's the key to your kind of habits and
yeah, I also think, like, you know, I think health and fitness and stuff has helped me a lot over the years as well. I wasn't at all fit, and I learnt that mainly being driven by, I speak on quite a lot of stages, and I realised that actually if I was going to be confident on a stage in front of other people, talking to them about various tips and techniques and all that kind of stuff, then I in myself needed to be comfortable. And one of the things I wasn't comfortable with, or one of the things I was sort of holding myself back on, was some of my own appearance. So I thought, well, no, I needed to nail that. So health and fitness routine in the mornings, I think is really, really key. And it's not that you need to go over the top, but I think it's having that time for yourself in the morning where you do what you want to do and you start the day how you want to start it, and it's not dictated by immediately logging into your phone and everybody else setting your agenda. So my morning routine, I don't do anything for anybody else until 10 o'clock every single day, default. I don't look at emails. I was talking to a lady there. I don't look at emails now at all, because I just found that is everybody else dictating what I should do with my time and not me actually being able to focus on what's important. So I got rid of emails a couple of years ago, and that made a huge, huge difference. Being confident that I'd got a process in place, that I knew emails were being dealt with, but I actually wasn't doing it at all. And that allowed me then to say, right, so the first 2-3 hours of the day, each and every day, are my agenda and what I want to get out of that day. And that in itself has been pretty fundamental.
I think that's hugely powerful, because I think, you know, I'm as bad as anybody sometimes. Is, you know, you can get caught in email prison. You know, you open your emails and 2 hours later, 3 hours later, you're still there, but you don't seem to have made any inroads into, you know, there's as many coming in as going out. So to completely get rid of the concept and let a team deal with it, a lot of us as control freaks would struggle with that, but you know, it's obviously yielding results.
Well, I am a bit of a control freak, and I just had to know I'd got a system in place. So I knew that I had to know that, like, autoresponders were going in and were firing, and the team knew what was an important email and what wasn't. And I wouldn't say it happened overnight, but you know, it took time. But wow, has that paid off? You know, that's 6-9 months of pain, and let's be honest, you know, them dropping a ball every now and again and not responding as they should. But as long as you learn from that process and say, well, look, I understand it's going to take 6-9 months for me to get comfortable that I never look at my inbox. If I know it's going to take that time and that's my goal, then I just have to work the system and get the right solution.
Okay. So what do you do to strategize and plan then? What kind of tools do you use? What team do you have around you? What techniques for kind of planning and strategizing?
So completely remote team. I've got two guys in the UK, 5 people out in the Philippines. We meet online once a month. So Zoom calls for that. We use Basecamp. If anybody uses Basecamp, we use Basecamp, which is a sort of a team management, project management tool. I definitely could not run the business without that. It's an absolute godsend when it comes to loading projects in, assigning an owner, assigning tasks and all that kind of stuff. So that is my measure, if you like. I can log into Basecamp and see where any project is at any one point in time. The entire team use Time Doctor, which is a online tracking tool. So it snaps the screenshots of people. So if you've got remote workers, even if people are just working away for one day, you can have them on Time Doctor and it'll periodically, and it's very clever software that even tells you about low mouse movements and all that sort of stuff. It's very, very clever. Because I got 5 people in the Philippines, so I'm never going to see them, right? So, I needed to have something that I know that at the end, and the other bit is that they get paid on what Time Doctor says that they've worked. So when they put their invoices in at the end of the month, it's 100 and however many hours, and that's what Time Doctor knows that they've worked. So I've got complete confidence in it. And ultimately, I guess like a lot of people in the room, I'm really much more focused about the output than I am about the time. Are they delivering the projects to the right standard and the right, then actually their hours. I'm not so bothered about that. I just want the outcome of the project delivered well. So Basecamp and Time Doctor, fundamental tools. There's no way I could run the business without them. Really recommend that. You can even, they haven't got to be remote workers. You can even use that for people, on your team that are office based.
And what are the guys in the UK and the guys in the Philippines doing? So just give us a little bit of a clue about who's in that virtual team.
So project manager and copywriter in the UK, to the 2 people. So everything I do is online these days. So copy is fundamental to it's my business basically. So Al's a professional copywriter, really good at that side of stuff. And then I've got George, who's a professional project manager, so he effectively manages the entire team. And then out in the Philippines, a combination of web and graphic designers who make everything look beautiful, because that's our storefront. So it's got to read well, it's got to look good, and it's got to read well, because that's the business, that's the front of it now. So I realised I just needed to invest in good people, but the Philippines has been another lifesaver, because you can, you're paying them between $6 and $10 an hour, and that is an incredibly good living wage for them out there in the Philippines. Marga who is my head designer, she's on $10.50 an hour, and she lives like royalty, because the cost of living in the Philippines is so much lower. She goes on 4 or 5 holidays a year. She's got cars. She's living in the house. So that's the other bit. I really like Richard Branson's principle of train them well and then treat them so well that they won't go anywhere else. Yeah. And that's kind of what I do. So you train them well, pay them well, and then treat them incredibly well so that they enjoy the job and they don't want to go anywhere else.
And that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because $10 an hour is probably a fifth of what you'd pay for even a PA over here, let alone 60, 70, 80 quid an hour for a web designer.
Yeah. Marga would be on 40 grand a year over here. Absolutely no. If I had to replace her, I'd need to plug that kind of gap, without a doubt.
And so I'm guessing it's taken you time to get to know them and then get to know you and how you work and what you want, because there's a language barrier, there's a time difference, there's a culture issue.
Yeah, so there's not all those barriers actually. Okay. You can go, a good friend of mine, Chris Ducker, set up my virtual assistant. He lived out in the Philippines. He's actually based out in Cambridge now. And he said it's the largest recruitment, and basically they will do it all for you. And you can even filter with him, So Margaret was educated in the States. She just lives in the Philippines. So she was born and raised, but she went over to the States to have her education. So she's US college education, just moving back to the Philippines. So there isn't so much of the barrier, a language barrier piece. There can be, but if you go through the right channels to find the team, there needn't be that objection.
It's a hurdle that some would overcome if they didn't know to overcome it, right?
Yeah.
So what about strategy? So you've talked to us about the team. What's your kind of game? How do you develop this master game plan of how you get from A to B? And
Yeah, so I think of, for me, I like simplicity because I'm not good at complex stuff. So I've got a membership site. So my products are a membership site, and I sell online courses. I just consider everything units or members. So the whole business strategy is around recruiting members to the membership site, and just working on growing that side of retained membership, reducing the churn of the memberships so people stay longer and they're happier and what have you. And if I can do that and I can recruit members that are exactly fit, my ideal members, then I know that I'm building a long-term growth pattern over there. And then courses I just treat as units. I do have a couple of price points of courses, but I treat everything as a unit. So I just know that what I'm selling, and everything's broken down into how many online events we need to run every month to generate the sale, the leads, and the units that we need to grow that side of the business. So we've got retained income, if you like, on the membership side, and then which basically covers more than covers the running costs of the business, and then this is the dividend. Yeah, the courses are the dividend payment, the bonus, the extra working capital to do whatever we want to do going forward. And that's the way I kind of think about it. I just like to simplify everything.
So you've basically said, I need to sell so many of those at that price and so many of those at that price that delivers me X. And then your whole systems and your team are about delivering those numbers.
Yeah, and then I do practice what I preach. So I look for all the partnerships that I can create that I know have a community, a network, a framework of my ideal clients in there. And this is a really good one to share. So when you're going after those partnerships, make it as much about the value that you can give to their community as possible. So everything I do, exactly what we're doing here, is how can I give value to somebody's community? Because if they're the right type of partner for me long term, then they'll be building a community that's based on people that get value out of being members or being in that space. So if they're the right kind of partner for me, then they'll be building that type of business. So if I can go into those kind of communities and add as much value as I can and get the awareness and the brand and all that sort of stuff, then I know later on that will turn into course sales or members later down the funnel. So make it 80-90% about the value that you can give to somebody's community. How can you help them with what they're looking to overcome? How can you help them with the transformation that person is already bringing to that community? How can you accelerate it? How can you complement it? And then once you're doing that, then just have the back-end systems around you so that you can gently nurture those leads that will organically come your way into members or units. Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit more about the detail of how this works over dinner and the concept of it, because there's a difference between kind of affiliates and partnerships, and so we'll get into that detail. So you talked to us about who's in your team, what systems you use, how you strategize. Who's in your support network? Who do you go to when you need help, when you need guidance, when you need accountability? Who teaches you everything you need to know?
Yeah, so I've got three. I'm a big believer in being very specific with your mentors rather than being generic with a mentor. So I've got a personal trainer that helps me with my fitness and stuff, and also really good about sort of mindset and how I'm thinking about myself and all that sort of stuff. I work with Shah Wasmond, who's a kick-ass business lady from London. A lot of time for Shah. She's helped me immensely with the online aspect of business and building my network as well. And then I work with a guy called Larry, who's been with me for a very long time, about the strategy of the business, because I think it's very easy to get, in the online world, it's very easy to get wrapped up in all the online gurus telling you what you should and shouldn't do. When actually, the fundamentals is, we need to multiply, we need to use our expertise to multiply money. So that's the core of it. So Larry's really, really good at the strategic side of, well, what are we doing in the business and why are we doing it? and what's the measurable result in that? If it's not money in the bank, what's the measurable return in that? And he's really good at keeping me focused in and making sure that I don't just go off on a shiny object because it's the new modern trend.
And there is, it's easy to log online, isn't it, or watch a video or whatever it might be, and all of a sudden there's this new get rich quick scenario with loads of brilliant sales and marketing tactics and videos, and if you're not careful, if you've got nobody to sound out, before you know it, you're signing up to some, multi-dollar program that's not going to deliver you what you want it to deliver.
Well, I do think so. There's another bit that we probably should go. I'm also a great believer in planning tomorrow today, because that's something I learned from another one of my mentors, John Lee Dumas. He's out in America, but he's really good at time mastery, and he really disciplined into me that you can't plan you can't start your day planning what your day needs to look like. You've got to plan tomorrow, so my 3 hours every morning, I already know what I'm doing actually for most of the week. But so if I do those things, then I know I've had a good week, and I can plan that in advance. Whereas if you stumble into the day and it's, what have I got to do today? And then you're inclined to go to the places that are just going to distract you rather than actually getting the core stuff done. So yeah, I can't quite remember how I got onto that, but it was a good little segue. So planning tomorrow today is fundamental for me.
And these are all the things that can and do trip small business owners up. So this is useful insight for us. So if you could sit down with your younger self, at whatever age you were, what insight, what anecdotes, what would you tell your younger self that you now know that you didn't then?
Yeah, I think two things. I would number one, I went into the golf business for all the wrong reasons. Even though I learned an enormous amount from it, but I actually went into it now with all completely the wrong, because it was proper hard. Selling that was real tough. And I'd gone in, play golf, it's my hobby. What a lovely what a lovely opportunity. Let's go and do what I love. Everybody says that you ought to do what you love. But actually what I should have done is looked at the framework and structure of the business behind it, because golf and country clubs look glorious from the outside, masses of property, it was all shiny and spanky from the outside, but the margin was absolutely awful. And it wouldn't have taken much due diligence, if you like, to actually dig behind the scenes and say, do you know what, it only takes a little bit for all this to go completely the wrong way. Actually, that happened much faster than anybody wanted it to happen. But, it looked glorious. I got bowled over by the glory of what apparently was presented as a very fancy business with 300 acres and lots of staff and lovely swanky buildings and offices and rooms and all that kind of stuff. This must be successful. I got kind of bowled over by that, and I didn't actually look at the detail of the business at all. It was, I love golf and this looks good. And I made my decision based on that. And actually, I went from a really comfortable job to on sort of equal pay, but then immediately realising that equal pay may not be as secure as I thought, because the overdraft got pulled, and it was like, bloody hell, forget everybody else. My bedtime thought was, how am I going to pay myself? I've got a mortgage and everything living on my own. It's like, I'm going to pay myself. Sod the staff for a minute. I had to look after number one. So yeah, that was definitely a lesson I'd tell my younger self, is not get bowled over by the glory of it. Some of the best businesses can be very simple and look very plain, but they're delivering exactly what the business owner wants them to. And some of the glorious looking ones aren't actually delivering really what the owners are after. So build a business that gives you what you want, which is my second one. Build a business that gives you what you want, not what you feel that you need to present.
So it's looking after number one rather than presenting to anybody else what it may or may not look like, because nobody cares.
Well, yeah, I think people do get into offices, and some of the hard assets. I think people make that decision on a glory basis rather than it's a bit like the car on the drive. It's a bit like that aspect. They make that decision based on that rather than actually, could I have a business that delivers what I want with a facilities that may be not so polished.
There's a Japanese methodology called Ikiji. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't.
And it's 4 cornerstones, and it's what is it you love? What are you good at? What does the world need? And can I get paid for it?
Yeah.
And all of those things, they bring in your passion, which I know the used word, but it brings in your passion, it brings in your expertise, it brings in your mission. That's how the Japanese kids at school are taught.
Yeah.
It's a theory called the Ikiji. So you touched upon it, but not that specific.
No, I didn't
But it is all
know
about,
it.
I'm good at this. I can get paid for it. I actually love it,
Yeah.
and the world needs it. And you suss those things out, you then find your purpose,
Yeah.
and then you went to you do the right thing. So you wouldn't have gone for the glory of the assets, the big buildings, the glossy offices. You would have gone for what you're good at, what you love, what you're going to get paid for, and what somebody needs.
Yeah.
In
very
hindsight,
good.
obviously, yeah.
But we've all done it, haven't we?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Everyone's done it.
Yeah. I think you just got to listen to and learn from people's experiences. I think that a lot of people listen, but they don't necessarily then go and take action on it. Yeah, but I think that's good. I will look that up. I'm going to ask you for that because I can't write that down now. But I'm going to ask you for that before you.
If you don't hit one of the cornerstones, it's not for you.
Yeah.
Because
I like that. I like that a lot.
I'm not going to get paid for it, so what's the point?
Yeah.
We'll take that out. So, you've shared some great insight with us and some great kind of stories and anecdotes, and we'll chat a little bit more over dinner. Has anybody got any specific questions while we've got Phil here?
You can share which bank it was.
Yeah, Royal Bank of Scotland.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, there's not really any surprise there, but that was
I
yeah.
remember we were told when we were pulling in overdrafts that the crash, a lot of us were complaining about it because we were the messengers. And my favourite phrase was that I don't define the rules, I merely administer them. And the bank's attitude was we're prepared to accept the collateral damage, that's reduce the asset book.
Yeah.
End of.
Oh yeah, I mean, we got it in the end, but not at the upfront because this was like I think it's sort of 2005-06, and they were already like looking at and of course we were in a leisure industry. I mean, what's going to get hit first? So you can get it. I look at it now and go, that was a smart move by the bank, because we survived on disposable income. Well, if that was going to disappear, we were very soon going to go the wrong way.
Yeah. On the traffic light system, that was one of their green sectors now.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions on
Ironic.
passive income, affiliate partnerships?
I think it's something that I'm really interested in because I'm ready to make that next leap too. I know that's what I need to do, but it's just the whole kind of like keeping your current clients happy, finding the time to work on a business so that you can make that leap to the passive income. How do you do that?
So
Repeat the question just for the purposes of editing, if you don't mind.
So the question is around sort of how do you focus your time and effort to get yourself out of the way of scaling your business. So a chap in America taught me this one, and he got me to write down the dollar jobs, the tens of dollar jobs, the $100 jobs, and the $1,000 jobs. And you look at your day and have a sheet of A4 or A1 around you, and look at where you're spending your time. Because if you're doing too many jobs that you could replace for just a few pounds or just a few tens of pounds, then that's the work that you need to process and get rid of as quickly as possible. Because as business owners, we need to be, there's always some hundreds that we've got to do. There's always some legwork we've got to do, but we really need to be in the thousands of columns. That's where we're going to move the dial around the business. But we're never going to, there's only so many hours in the day, and we're never going to do it if we're getting caught up in the pound and tens of pound jobs that arguably we should be outsourcing. And it's just because it's visual, I'm quite a visual person, so because it was a graph and it was like dots on the chart, each time I was doing a low end job, it's a strike, And you think, bloody hell, you know, it's like there's far too many strikes in those columns. So what were they, and how do I process that to get rid of it? Because these days there is no reason why we're doing the lower paid tasks, and that creates the time then for you to quality time for you to think about the more important ones. It's a classic one, but because it's visual, it really worked for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
How do you differentiate between an affiliate and a partner?
You're right. So a partner is where you're going to have a personal relationship with them. So they're going to know, like, and trust you already. They're probably in your network, or you can work yourself in a way where you bring them into your network and you bring them in as a professional contact or a personal friend or that kind of stuff. Yeah. Those relationships are normally the strongest ones because they're doing it to support you rather than to put money in their bank. Now, they might put money in their bank as a flip side of it, but their primary driver is you, to support you and to give value to their community. An affiliate marketers, there's millions of affiliate marketers out there in every possible sector you could imagine, but they are purely based on the monetary return. So their decision is purely around, well, if you've got a sales process that for every 100 people produces X return, and that is more than somebody else that they've currently got a relationship with, you'll take that space. It's hard, cold, that there's no relationship in it at all. It's all about the performance. So that's how I differentiate the two.
What's your preference?
A combination, actually. I tend to look about 70-30. 70% around partnerships, because those are the ones you can get much bigger return out of there, and it's long term. There's longevity in that. But equally, you know, there are sites out there that get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of hits every single month, and having some passive traffic from that is nice. Yeah, but equally you can't go, if you go too much that way, you find that arguably you end up with a business that's not really, or you end up with a marketing channel that's not so much under your control, because the next time they get a better offer, and you know that your competitors will see you on that site, or there's a chance that they will, and as soon as they see you on that, they've only got to pay a little bit more and you get dumped and they get dived in. So it's delicate. But so there's a place for it, but I bias the relationship side.
Thank you.
Fab. One last question before we break for dinner.
Can I just ask about your emails? I'm intrigued. You don't answer emails, so how do people communicate those emails to you?
So I might miss it. I do reply to emails, but it's actually it's I'm the third port.
So it's like triaged.
Yeah. We just use Gmail or G Suite, steady, and Lynn will go through and flag emails for me for the ones that I need to reply. We've got a little colour coding system between us, and like twice a day I'll dive in, see what's there, and if they're the ones that need a personal reply from me, then it's dead simple because I've got literally 5 or 10 tops. And I know that I can finish the day and I'm not looking at 60 emails tomorrow morning.
That's all right. Ladies and gents, thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. Phil from Partnership Profits, thanks ever so much for your insight.
Thanks
it's been a
very
pleasure.
much, Gary.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thanks very much.